you guys know where Kiama and Gerringong is?
No idea.
Heard of them?
It sounds like it.
They sound like places from the Wizard of Oz.
South Coast. Oh.
Yeah. You can be aroused when you're awake.
That's right.
You could be like,
rouse me at the crack of dawn.
Yeah. Could be...
Just putting an A in front of it.
I think the trick is always having moist, clammy hands.
I can make it separating. Oh.
I can do it. I can even do a two-tone. Look at it.
Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Actors Nerding Out Loud.
Welcome
back.
Lucky number 3.
Lucky number 3. Okay, we're going to do one film today. Due to some time restrictions, we haven't been able to get out to see more than one. But we're going to be doing The Invisible Man.
Yes.
Which has been exploded all over the world, actually. Has been doing way better at the box office than those that made it expected, which is wonderful. Always really great for the filmmaking team.
Not literally, fortunately. Fortunately, not literal explosions.
Yeah.
Just
yes.
Yeah, everywhere.
Metaphorical explosions.
Just metaphorical explosions.
Emotional
explosions. That's it. No more types of explosions. You just wanted to quickly do something before we start?
Yes, we would like to all acknowledge the traditional owners of this land. And to honour all elders past, present and future.
Great. And I think, Natty, you also have the beginning spiel for today, so do you want to start that one off for
us? I do. So, again, a couple of notes here. So, The Invisible Man is a horror science fiction film adaptation of H.G. Wells' novel of the same name. And this particular reboot is written and directed by Lee Wannell, one of the creators of the Saw franchise.
Yes.
So an old hand or an old hat in the horror genre. The film begins with Cecilia Elizabeth Moss escaping by the skin of her teeth from abusive, psychotic, optics billionaire boyfriend Adrian, played by Oliver Jackson Cohen. Her sister Emily Harriet Dyer sequesters her away for her recovery with her amiable police colleague James, played by Aldous Hodge, and his daughter Sydney, played by Storm Reed. Cecilia's recovery is ruined by her increasing belief that her ex has somehow achieved invisibility and is hounding her every action. The film is a hair-raising exploration of many of the questions raised by the Me Too movement. For example, at what point do we believe a woman who says she is being abused? What did you guys think of this film?
Well, I think before we jump in, I think for this movie in particular, we have to be really aware of spoilers.
Yes.
Because this is a jump scare kind to movie.
Absolutely, and relies very much on the twists and turns.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So
okay.
That's going to make it a little bit challenging to talk about some of the elements, but I really think for the viewers. For those people that haven't seen it.
For those of you that also haven't seen it, maybe better to go and see it.
Oh,
it is here! Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, for those of you that maybe haven't seen it, it probably will be just in case at any point in this review, because we're going to absolutely endeavour to do our best not to give away any spoilers, but the way we talk about it may offer certain clues. So it might be better to go out and watch it, and then definitely come back and watch it, and watch this and share us to the whole world.
Yeah. And if someone is going to give spoilers, it's going to be you.
It's going to be That's why I'm the one giving the caveat.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what did I think? I find it really hard to talk about this film. I really liked certain elements, and I really found other parts difficult. So I really struggled with elements of the film.
Difficult from a point of view as a viewer, or just looking at it technically?
Looking at it as a filmmaker, I felt that the overall the choice to update this old story, this Invisible Man, which we know has been made quite a few times actually as a horror film, to update this horror film with in a metaphorical context. I did feel that it was relatively heavy-handed in some ways in regards to that metaphor, and didn't actually give me, until some very specific moments towards the end of the film, which I won't give away, didn't give me a very much of an insight into what it actually feels like to be in a domestic violent relationship, in an abusive relationship, beyond the kind of obvious ones, like beyond the obvious things of nobody believes me or fear and threat. There just was a lack of complexity in the metaphor for me, a little bit.
Yes. I would agree with that. I really think that as a filmmaker, because he wrote and directed it.
He wrote and directed it.
Yeah.
And this is his second the first film he directed, his first ever direction,
was one of the Insidious films.
Was it? Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
I thought he only wrote those because I thought his first direction was Upgrade.
No, he did one of the Insidious films and he did Upgrade.
Okay, there you go. So he's still relatively new at directing, but he's been writing for a long time because he wrote the original Saws. So sorry.
Yes.
Along with James Wan. Yeah, it was James Wan and Lee Weinel who...
I definitely feel, given his sort of his shtick as a creative, I think he does very well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know? So that opening sequence, which is completely without dialogue, of Elizabeth Moss creeping through the house to escape the abusive partner, I think is done fantastically. Like, I was on the edge of my seat.
Within seconds.
Seconds.
Yeah.
And that's incredible.
And that is also due to some incredible casting, I think.
She was fantastic.
Yes, this is the kind of stuff that Elizabeth Moss does best.
And truly, I think, if someone else had been in the lead, it would have been the difference between the film working as much as it did, or not working at all, and being a complete C grade, B grade.
I agree.
And not to take away the end of your point, so please do continue afterwards. But I think that the key point of the complexity with the issue was her performance.
Yes.
Beyond that, the frame in which she was in was where I felt like the complexity melted away a little bit. But her performance was very complex.
Yes, she has an incredible ability to live intensely in the moment with the given circumstances that she's in. As we've seen throughout all of her career, that she does incredibly well with that kind of thing. But aside from that ability, aside from her acting ability to live so incredibly truthfully in the moment, the actual characters in this film I felt were all fairly... they were caricatures. They were ciphers. They were, this is the best friend, this is the sister, this is the cop. Do you know what I mean? They were just the signposts. And none of them really had anything... What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say I didn't get a sense that any of these characters had a life outside of the moment that we saw them on screen. Exactly.
They were plot devices, and there was a lot of that in there.
I have to say, though, I think the building of the tension with the direction and through Elizabeth Moss's incredible acting was done so well that I actually, even though I was on the periphery, I was like, okay, yeah, I was feeling what you both were just expressing. I was like leaning into the warmth of their characters, the purpose of their characters being comedic relief, being little spots and moments of warm human interaction.
Yeah.
I was so... actually, this is one of the most scary films I've ever seen, actually, I would have to say.
Oh, really?
And to the extent that those small moments of warmth, as signposted as they were, I was grateful for. I was like, there's something, it's just normal human interaction. It's safe. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. This is what I'm saying. I think he has chosen his subject matter expertly, because we all know that the scariest thing in the world is what we can't see. It's our imagination. And when we watch the film The Invisible Man, in any room, our minds are doing this director's job for him. Do you know what I mean? Like, we are imposing where the Invisible Man might be at any moment. So,
I think that was the most masterful thing about this, and I hope it sends a strong message to other people that are wanting to make horror films, is that all that needs to happen is the suggestion of a threat. Because the from a technical point of view, when the shots panned from a character, particularly Elizabeth Moss, to other parts of an empty room, on edge of on the edge of my seat.
We're doing all the work.
Yeah,
we're imposing where the invisible man may or may not be.
I want to play devil's advocate here. I actually had the complete opposite experience.
Yeah.
I really don't want to say this to be contentious, because I genuinely wanted to have the experience that I felt Adele was having when we were watching the film together, and I didn't, because of the title, and because I knew that even in the trailer, I believe at some point you see the suit or him in the suit,
right?
And I was then therefore the whole time never given space for my imagination to think what this could be. From the beginning, I knew it was the Invisible Man. And therefore, the only point of fear for me really came when nobody believed her.
Yeah.
And from a psychological perspective, I was like devastated for her when I was so sure that this person was real. And yet she was like, and then I was like, that's domestic abuse. Like that's the horror. It was a psychological horror for me, but in terms of jump scare, because I knew what I was in for. I knew I was in for things moving and things happening and me not being able to see why. It's like if you have a ghost story, you don't know quite at the beginning how the ghost interacts with the world.
Yes.
But for me, it was too solidified in this reality that it's this invisible person messing with the space. And so I was just waiting for that to happen.
Yes.
Now, a caveat, masterfully shot. I completely agree with you with the slow movements to areas of where you were just looking at a room and you were kind of doing the Where's Waldo situation where you're trying to find the thing that's going to move.
And that was Stefan Ducio, who was the cinematographer. And I also want to mention that he, so this was actually filmed in Australia, and some of those beautiful, I think an interesting thing that the cinematographer / director, the decision that they obviously made was, the beauty of that opening property, the rich billionaire's property, the beauty of that contrasted with this just absolutely horrific domestic abuse situation that was obviously happening was really, it was cold and chilling for me. That contrast of how horrible things can happen in the most stunning space, and I think that was in Kiama and Gerringong in New South Wales that the house was filmed in.
I think that's a really good point for me as well, because I think that in terms of its parts, I found it to be a really great film. I mean, and I can see this director is, really maturing with every single film that he makes. He's making better, more interesting, more complex, more detailed films. And he's really getting into a genre that he obviously loves. And you can see that on the film. Yep. It's kind of he's proud of the horror genre, and he does it well. But I guess those parts never quite came together for me to give me an actual horror film experience. And I think that was mainly, as I said, just because I knew who the enemy was. And I like to feel a little bit more unsure about the enemy.
Whereas I think it is moving beyond the tropes of characters in this kind of story and actually developing more nuanced human relationships. Do you know what I mean? So that the world that he creates is held more successfully by
to then be broken.
That's right.
by the events.
I guess the other slightly frustrating thing for me. And I actually genuinely think this film was a success in terms of what it was trying to set out to do, but it's still, for me, I'm not sure about you guys, we haven't mentioned any plot holes, but for me, there was gaping plot holes.
Yeah, there was.
And that did, to the extent that it did insult my intelligence as a viewer a little bit. Yeah. Especially towards the end, I'm not going to mention it, but towards the end, the major twist that happened in the house of where she was spent the majority of her time being looked after by the Aldous Hodges policeman and her daughter. That major twist there wasn't actually enough time for that to have been set up by the protagonist.
Yes, no, totally.
There was no time, and so I was actually kind of checked out for that last quarter of the film.
I found
but just to finish on my point, the only thing that kept me in the film to the point of still being able to enjoy it to a certain extent was the editing and how quickly the story moved along at a blistering pace, to the point that even though I as a viewer could feel the plot holes and was mildly insulted, I was still kept along the journey. Yeah,
I totally agree. And I also feel that thematically, I really enjoyed the idea of having The idea of that the guy really wanted her to become pregnant. She didn't want to become pregnant. So all of these themes of like controlling a woman's body, controlling her thoughts, controlling how she is in the world. I think thematically that is really poignant right now. And
Absolutely.
I really celebrate the way this film has tried to tackle that idea in a way that's going to bring people into the cinema for a scary movie, but it does at least have elements of something that I really think is an important issue in there as well. And I think that ultimately, for all of its plot holes, I tend to sort of forgive it because of the incredible editing, and he's just so good at those twists. So it's fun, you enjoy it despite the fact that it falls short in areas.
Yeah, I think that those plot holes for me really bared their head in terms of actually what you were saying at the beginning in terms of character relationships.
Yeah.
There were one or two responses from characters for me that and this is again, it ties it all together again to why I didn't feel it was very complex in certain areas, is because you did feel it kind of sway from this incredible psychological exploration of what it feels to be like in this situation to then being one of his masterfully written plot-driven scripts that twist at the end. Like, the Saw twist. We all remember the Saw twist at the end and we go, oh my gosh,
it's great.
No one saw that coming. And there were 3 or 4 moments like that in this film.
Yes.
But I almost felt like those moments actually took away from the psychological experience of the metaphor that it was trying to explore.
I agree. But at least its heart was in.
But its heart was in the right place, and he's moving in the right direction. I think every single film that I see him make, he's starting to go deeper into these scripts. He's working harder. He's moving further away from plot horror gimmicks and more into these psychological investigations of horror in the human world.
Condition.
I think that's it.
Well,
one of the things I quickly do want to say from an acting point of view is that as an actor watching this film, I was, towards the end, I actually had in my mind how perhaps unhealthy it would be. As actors, we're meant to invest and completely get into roles, but it made me think of all the dark places that Elizabeth Moss has gone into.
Recent times, Handmaid's Tale,
and this film
messed up.
And it did kind of slightly take me out of the film in moments, just being slightly concerned for her mental health because,
it must be super draining.
Yeah, just because it's our job, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have an impact on our emotional, physiological well-being.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. And
I'm sure she looks after herself though. She seems like.
And I have to admit, I would like to get a.
Elizabeth Moss comedy?
No. I would like to get a opinion of this film from a woman who has actually been through this experience. And I feel like that was the one thing that I was watching through a lot of it going, is he capturing this or is this just a male's perspective of the situation? I was wondering that. Do you know what I mean? Because I think Elizabeth Moss's performance opened it up to the complexity, but I would just really love to hear about how women that have actually been through this situation would feel about this film. Did he capture it? Was the script gentle enough?
Respectful?
Was it respectful? I actually don't know.
I know, but even the fact that we're bringing it into the public eye
is wonderful.
Yeah. I'm gonna give this film 3 chooks out of 5. I was deeply scared, terrified, and I really enjoyed the subtlety of the psychological thrill that the director imbued in this film, and of course Elizabeth Moss's incredible performance did as well. The only reason I'm not giving it more is because of all those gaping plot holes.
Okay, I'm going to give this... I was about to make a coronavirus joke, but I won't.
Too soon.
Too soon. Well, happening now.
Yeah.
I'm going to give this 1.5 stars out of 5 because my stars that I am giving it are for its intention and its... this director's incredible decision to move away from gimmicky plot horror and into the kind of psychological thriller realm. Attempting to look at something in a really deep way. The reason it's losing some stars for me at this point in time is because I personally didn't have the horror film experience watching this film. And actually that really probably wasn't the director's fault. It was mainly just that I wasn't that interested in the gimmick itself. I knew who the villain was, and then from there on it was kind of a bit naff for me.
Well, I definitely did get the horror experience, so I'm giving this 3 stars. I think it's a great Friday night jump scare film. Would have loved for it to go a bit deeper, but I still found it to be an enjoyable, scary movie to watch. Awesome.
Cool. Well, with that, please tell us what your thoughts are.
Yes.
What do you think the film succeeded at? What do you think it could have done better at? Please feel free to like, share, subscribe. And until next time, stay healthy, keep safe, look after yourselves.
Keep nerding out loud.
Yay! Yay!